With the 2024 NFL Draft just a few short days away, I figured it was about time I finally did a mock draft here on YouTube. I meant to do more of these earlier throughout the offseason, but, things happen. Life's hectic. I'm a junior in college, about to finish up my semester here in 2 weeks, so I got a lot going on, right? But we're finally going to do one, better late than never. We're going to cover the first round plus the 33rd pick, because as a Bears fan, I know Carolina Panther fans and Bears fans aren't getting along so great right now. So I figured as a bit of a peace offering, I would show them some love in this mock draft, them not having a first round pick. But keep in mind, this is going to be a what I would do mock draft. This isn't a predictive mock. This isn't going with the consensus. This is based on my evaluations, what I think would fit for different teams, and, players I would take in the first round. So if you see a guy fall out of the first round that you think belongs in the first round, or vice versa, you see a guy goes in the first round that you don't think belongs in the first round, let me know down in the comments below what you would have done in that situation instead. I'd love to hear your input. I'd love to hear what you have to say. But before we jump into this, please make sure to leave a like down below, as it does help out the channel a ton, shows your support, shows you care, all that good stuff. And also make sure to subscribe, as I do have a couple more videos coming out before the draft, and also we'll have videos after the draft throughout the summer. You definitely won't want to miss. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into my first and only mock draft of the 2024 offseason. All right, here at the top of the draft, the Chicago Bears are going to select Caleb Williams out of USC. No surprises here. I feel like this is pretty cut and dry. All but confirmed that the Bears are taking Caleb at number 1. I know a few months back I made my quarterback video, talking about my top 10 quarterbacks in the draft, and I had Drake and Caleb at 1A, 1B, and actually had Drake above Caleb. I've since cooled off on that take. I have Caleb as a pretty comfortable QB1, completely separated him away from Drake. And that's because as I continued to watch these two, it just became so apparent that Caleb is a special quarterback. And it's not that Drake isn't really good. I think Drake also has the potential to be a legit franchise quarterback somewhere. It's just the fact that there's so many things Caleb can do. He can work in structure, out of structure. He sees the field great. He's a good leader, great football character. He just has everything you want out of a quarterback, right? We all know Caleb. I don't have to spend too much time on this. So as I continue to watch the two of them, with watching their receivers, guys like Tosh Washington, Brendan Rice, Des Walker, watching them play against different defenses, specifically you watch the USC UCLA game where Laiatu Latu was single-handedly destroying USC's offensive line, and Caleb was able to make him look goofy a couple times and, able to get away from him. I just think it's pretty apparent that Caleb's the best quarterback in this class, and Chicago would be making a massive mistake if they didn't take him number 1 overall. So I don't think there's too much more to add with this pick. All right, here with the second pick, I have the Washington Commanders taking Drake May, the quarterback out of North Carolina. And, I know Jaden Daniels is the favorite. I don't care. I think Drake is a substantially better quarterback. I think Drake is better in the pocket. I think he's a better improviser. Sure, Jaden's a better runner, but, when it comes to actually making plays on the run with his arm, I think Drake's a lot better. I think he handles pressure a lot better. I think he sees the field a lot better. He's definitely better at attacking over the middle of the field. I think he has a stronger arm. Like, Drake's just better in so many different ways. And when you have a situation in which you have a good supporting cast, good enough, at least I would say that you could probably plug some holes on the offensive line and maybe add a better tight end, but you have good receivers. You have a solid run game. You have a solid defense on the other side of the ball. You need pass rushers, but, this is a good pass rusher class. You've got 2 second-round picks. End up with a guy like Austin Booker, for example. I think you'll be in good shape there. I like the situation Washington has for Drake. I know he's not the flashy pick. I know he's not the exciting pick. We've said on my podcast quite a bit that it's probably going to be Jaden just based off the fact that the Commanders are going to want to go flashy because Magic Johnson is a part of their ownership group, and Magic's going to want the big flashy player. But I think when it comes down to it in terms of who's better at playing the position of quarterback, it's Drake, and it's not close. So I think Washington would be making a big mistake if they passed on him for Jaden Daniels. Drake May is very much like a Justin Herbert, Josh Allen type of quarterback. If you want to hear my full thoughts on him or Caleb or any of the other quarterbacks, I did make a video talking about my top 10 quarterbacks. And the only difference in opinion that I have now that I didn't have earlier with Drake is that I think his footwork is a little sloppier than I was making it out to be originally, but that's very fixable. He's a very coachable player. So again, I think Washington would be making a major mistake if they passed on Drake May to take Jaden Daniels at 2. Here at number 3, I've got the Patriots sticking and picking a quarterback. I know there's a lot of smoke about them potentially trading down, but I do think personally the best way to build a team is to make sure you have your quarterback in place and then figure out the rest later, especially when you're in a situation where your quarterback isn't going to have to start year one. And if JJ became a Patriot, he wouldn't start year one. Straight up, he would not play. You would have Jacoby Brissett playing in there, kind of, handling the brunt of the mediocrity that the Patriots are going to be dealing with. Their offensive line isn't perfect. They need some weapons. Their defense isn't great, but you got a new regime. You go out, you get your quarterback, you let him develop behind Jacoby Brissett, and you have the potential to have a legit franchise guy. Now, I know a lot of people don't like JJ McCarthy. He's viewed as like a bit of a game manager. I disagree. I think McCarthy has the upside of like a top 10 quarterback. Will he reach that potential? I don't know. It's a rookie quarterback. We'll have to see. But I do like McCarthy a decent bit. I think he is very, very capable as a long-term option, for the Patriots. And again, getting to sit him for a year, allow him to learn behind Brissett, allow him to learn from your coaching staff is a big deal. You can get some receivers on day 2. You can get some weapons next offseason. He'll have the quarterback rookie contract to build off of. And I can tell you right now, from what I've seen, JJ McCarthy is substantially better than the quarterbacks coming out next year. So, I think this is the right pick for the Patriots. You could go Marv here, but, out of the quarterbacks on the board, I think JJ is the best one for the Patriots. I think Bo Nix is the most talented right now, but I think McCarthy's the best fit for a team that isn't going to want to start a rookie right away. Up next at number 4, we've got the Cardinals, once again sticking and picking, and I think this is probably the second easiest pick of the draft. If you're the Cardinals and Marv falls to you at 4, you take that all day, every day. Marv is a legitimate blue chip wide receiver. Very little wrong with his game. The only thing is he's not like a hyper athlete, but he's still a damn good athlete. If you really want to nitpick, you can bring that up. But, you have this Cardinals team that hasn't had a true dominant number 1 for Kyler. You tried D-Hop. He worked a little bit, but there was a lot of disconnect there. So you bring in Marvin Harrison to pair with a receiver duo that I actually already like the upside of, with Greg Dortch, who I'm a big fan of. We'll have a video about him coming out during the summer at some point. I think he's a great number 3. And you've got Michael Wilson, who I liked a lot coming out last year. He's going to be your number 2 as more of just like a savvy route runner that'll find ways to get open. And Marv's your dominant alpha receiver who's going to help take over games. Him and Kyler on the deep ball is going to be a thing of beauty because we know Kyler has one of the best deep balls in the league. Marv is a wide receiver that is great at winning downfield, great at, winning 50-50 balls, things like that. So I think this is a no-brainer for the Cardinals. Sure, maybe someone wants to trade up for Jaden Daniels here. You get a haul for it. I think I'd rather have Marv in Arizona's spot right now. So I think this is a pretty much a no-brainer pick. All right, here's where we're going to have our first trade of the mock, and we're going to have the Vikings trading up with the Chargers to go up and get their quarterback of the future. And this one is tough for me, first of all, because I know in the comments, there's going to be people that point out right away, I'm a Bears fan. I was just talking about how much I don't like Jaden Daniels, giving him to the Vikings. I think Daniels would work out in Minnesota. I think out of the 2 teams that have the best, out of the teams in general that have the best landing spot for a quarterback, it's between Chicago and Minnesota. And I think Minnesota's is a little bit better just because their coaching staff is a little bit more proven. Sure, Chicago, you have DJ Moore and you have Keenan Allen and you have Cole Kmet and you have a really solid offensive line. You have a good run game. You have a good backfield. You have a good defense. You've got a good culture you've established. The Vikings have Kevin O'Connell, who is one of the best offensive minds in football. He made the Pastronaut look like a superstar for 2 weeks, on short notice, mind you. You have Justin Jefferson, who is the single best receiver in football. You have TJ Hawkinson, who was on pace to break records as a receiving tight end last year before he got hurt. You have Aaron Jones out of the backfield, who's one of the best pass-catching running backs in the league. You have CJ Ham, who's one of the best pass-catching fullbacks in the league. You have Jordan Addison, who's awesome. The Vikings have an incredible situation for a quarterback to step into. And on top of that, technically speaking, Jaden doesn't have to start right away. I think you can manage with Sam Darnold for a few weeks, even if you want to be competitive. So you go out, you get Jaden Daniels, who has some work to do. But man, I'd be lying if I said the idea of him chucking it up to Justin Jefferson didn't scare the shit out of me. because, oh my God, I don't think I have to explain that. Like, Jaden Daniels, his best traits are his ability to run the ball and his ability to throw the ball deep down the field. The middle of this field stuff, I think Kevin O'Connell and Josh McCown and the rest of that coaching staff can work out. I know this isn't ideal for Minnesota. Obviously, you would probably rather have Drake May or even JJ McCarthy, but I think this is a fine consolation prize. I still think he's worth trading up for if you're Minnesota, just to make sure you get a quarterback if he starts to slip. And as for the Chargers, I mean, you have so many holes on your roster. This is a great first round talent draft class. It's very top heavy. So getting some extra picks, you get a third rounder next year. I just threw that in. I'm not great with trade value, so you'll have to let me know in the comments below if you think that's overkill, if you think the Vikings could have gotten away with just giving up 11 and 23. But, you know, the Chargers are going to be able to fill more than one hole. The Vikings get their quarterback. I think this is a win-win both ways. Next up with the Giants, we're going to go with Malik Neighbors out of LSU, and I want to say this is a nightmare scenario for the Giants because you don't get to walk away with a quarterback, but I don't think that's the case. I think Malik Neighbors is incredible. I think getting Neighbors for this offense, if nothing else, sets up a future quarterback for success, right? We're in an era in the league where having that number one receiver on a cheap contract is a huge deal because wide receivers are making more money than they've ever made before. So you can try it. You can run it back one more year with Daniel Jones. You know, he kind of worked with Brian Dable, then he got hurt last year. So you can run it back again with a healthy Daniel Jones. If he works, great, right? You got it figured out. You don't have to put assets towards a quarterback. If he doesn't work, oh well. You have a legit number one who is a versatile weapon, can play the Z, can play out of the slot. Dable's going to have a field day with this guy. I mean, Dable is absolutely going to love Malik Neighbors. So I don't see a world where this isn't a win for them. Personally, Neighbors isn't my wide receiver 2, but I think he's the best fit for what Dable wants, and that's to stretch the field laterally, you know, attack over the middle, things like that. I think he likes guys that are a little bit better after the catch. And my wide receiver 2 being Rome Odunze, spoilers for tomorrow's video. I think, you know, like I said, Neighbors is just a better fit for what they'd want. Odunze isn't as great at stretching the field laterally. He's not as great as after the catch. Neighbors is better there. So I think this is the right fit for them. I think this will be highly beneficial. And yeah, you don't get your quarterback, but you get a guy who would be a number one receiver, or the number one receiver in any other draft class. So you're feeling pretty damn good about that. At number 7, I feel like this one's pretty self-explanatory. The Titans go with Joe Alt out of Notre Dame. Easily the best tackle in this class. True blue chip player. I want to say he's a top 3 player on my board. If not, he's top 5. I don't remember offhand. I'm pretty sure it's top 3. And you're getting him at 7. You're getting protection for Will Levis, which is what this offseason has been about. It's been about building around Will Levis. You spend a ton of money at wide receiver, and you don't have a left tackle. Like, I know you have Nicholas Petit-Frere. He's not good. So you're going to go out, you're going to get a legit stud at left tackle, your first franchise left tackle since, what, Taylor Lewan? And even then, I think Alt has a higher ceiling than Lewan. Dude, 6'8", athletic, super strong, great run blocker, even better pass blocker. Like, Alt is incredible. And to get a blue chip tackle at 7, when your biggest need by far is your offensive line, I think that's great value. I think that's a great pick. And this one, you know, I wish I had more to say, but I feel like it's pretty self-explanatory. And if Alt on the board at 7, I think this is one you just run up to the podium and don't think twice about it. All right, this one I hated to do because it kind of screws over my Bears who pick at 9. But the Chargers are going to do what the Texans did, and that's trade down and then trade back up for talent. You're going to jump up with the Falcons. You give up the 11th pick, your second rounder, and Minnesota's 3rd next year that you got from the trading back, and you're going to get the 8th pick and a 5th rounder next year back, and you end up taking Rome Odunze, who, like I said, is my number 2 receiver. I think he's an incredible ball winner. Reminds me a lot, I know a lot of my subscribers are Bears fans. He reminds me a lot of a prime Alshon Jeffrey, but better. He's like if Alshon was a little more athletic, just moved a little bit smoother, was a little bit better of a route runner, because this dude catches everything. He catches absolutely everything. His catch radius is incredible. He's a great 50-50 ball guy. The only, like, slight complaint you might have is he's not great after the catch, but when you have Justin Herbert, who throws the single prettiest deep ball in all of football, You get him a legit ball winner downfield, kind of what Mike Evans was, or not Mike Evans, excuse me, Mike Williams. Mike Evans is an incredible ball winner. What Mike Williams was always supposed to be, but never was. I think that's an absolute win for the Chargers. I know Harbaugh is probably more of a trenches-oriented guy. You obviously have Greg Roman. Maybe you can make the argument that the pick here would be Brock Bowers, or you wait for Brock Bowers. But I think Odunze is the better player personally, and I think it's more about just getting Herbert a weapon than it is about, you know, targeting a specific position. So I think Rome Odunze would be an absolute home run pick for the Chargers here. Trading up, you're not giving up anything too crazy. You've still got a first rounder coming up here in a little bit, and you get to jump ahead of the Bears, who would almost certainly take him at 9 if he was available. We've got another trade here at 9. The Bears, seeing that Rome Odunze is off the board, they trade down with the Colts, who are going to send a 2nd and a 5th alongside the 15th pick to move up 6 spots and take Brock Bowers out of the University of Georgia. And I know there's going to be some Bears fans that are pissed off about this one, missing out on Bowers, but listen, Cole Kmet's a top 10 tight end, and you just signed Gerald Everett. I know it's only to a 1-year deal, but taking Bowers instead of taking an immediate impact player who will serve a bigger hole, it kind of, you know, I don't like the idea of that, especially when you can trade back and get more value. Now, if the Bears had to stick at 9, absolutely I would entertain Bowers, but getting the opportunity to add a 2nd round pick and a 5th round pick when you only have 4 picks in this draft class that I think is absolutely incredible, I'd jump at that opportunity. I am very in favor of trading back if I'm Chicago, if Odunze and Neighbors are off the board. But let's go ahead and talk about the team that actually picked here, being the Indianapolis Colts, who, like I said, took Brock Bowers here. And the big idea here, I just said here about 15 times, the main idea is that you need like a true dynamic weapon for the Colts. You have Michael Pittman, who's a really, really solid X, right? I would say he's a number 1 receiver, but he's not, when you're game planning for the Colts, you're not shaking in your boots thinking about Michael Pittman. It's like, yeah, he's probably going to beat you a couple times on some intermediate routes, but he's not torching you for an 80-yard touchdown. You have Josh Downs. You press him, he's kind of taken out of the play. Like, sure, he's going to get big explosive plays out of the slot. You press him, you're taking him out of the play. You have Anthony Richardson, who is a big arm threat, has a lot of speed. He's still relatively raw. He looked great when he was playing last year, but that was in 4 games, I think, 3 or 4 games, and he missed time within those games. So you need that big time weapon, and the best big time weapon, you know, available on the board is Bowers. You trade up ahead of the Jets, who would almost certainly take him at 9, and you get a guy who is capable of both being an inline tight end. He can play a bit of a move tight end. He can play H-back if you want him to. He can play slot wide receiver. You can probably whip out formations where he's playing a Z or even an X if you really wanted to. Like, you get this super versatile offensive chess piece that's going to make Anthony Richardson's job a hell of a lot easier, is going to make Michael Pittman's job a hell of a lot easier, and is going to make Josh Downs' job a hell of a lot easier. And you know, it's not like you have to take Alec Pierce off the field either. You still have that opportunity. You look at the Colts tight end room right now, it's nothing special. I've always liked Jelani Woods, but Bowers is easily better than Woods. I would, you know, be happy to move Woods to tight end too. And even then, you can maneuver formations where you've got both of them on the field, because Bowers can play that slot role. So there's a bunch of different possibilities. You just get a really dynamic offensive weapon. High RAS score, one of the more athletic tight ends of all time. We know the Colts love their RAS scores, so I think this would be a no-brainer for them if they had the opportunity to go up and get Bowers. So now we've got the Jets here, who are a little sad that Brock Bowers is off the board, but it's okay because we're going to go with J.C. Latham out of Alabama. He's my 2nd offensive tackle behind Joe Alt. I know a lot of people would have Olu Fashanu there. I don't blame you for that. I prefer a tackle that can do it all over a tackle that's just a great pass blocker. Don't get me wrong, Olu's incredible, and we'll talk about him here in a few picks, but the Jets are a team, to me, that want to run the ball this year. You look at the additions they made. They add Tyron Smith, they add Morgan Moses, 2 great tackles who unfortunately are on the older side and their health is a little bit of a concern, but they're great run blockers. That's what they excel at. You have Elijah Vera Tucker, great run blocker. You have Nick Bowden, who bounces up and down off the roster. He's a really good blocker. You have good blocking wide receivers. You have a good run game with Breece Hall, and you have Aaron Rodgers, who loves to have a good run game so he can operate off play action You can take some of the stress off of him. He's coming off a major injury that he suffered at the beginning of last year. You want to be able to run the ball. And Latham, year one, can play guard for you. You can have him just on your offensive line as this giant hulking behemoth of a blocker. And when, either Moses or Smith leaves inevitably, because I think they're both on 1-year deals, if I'm not mistaken. Moses might be on a longer deal. But if they're both on 1-year deals, like I think, they're going to leave. You're going to need to fill out tackle spots, and Latham can either bounce out there or stick at guard and continue to be an absolute ass kicker there. So you're making your offensive line better right now, and you're shoring up at least a tackle, or at least one tackle spot long term by picking up Latham. Like I said, he's my second favorite tackle on the board. I know apparently I want to say it's their owner is big on Talise Fuanga. I wouldn't hate that pick either, but I think Latham's a little bit better as much as I love Fuanga. So going tackle here at 10, especially if Bowers and the top 3 receivers are off the board, makes a ton of sense in my opinion, and I think Latham is the best tackle available on the board, so this is kind of a no-brainer for me. Now the Falcons here trading down from 8, you're thinking your lucky stars that Dallas Turner, who you probably would have taken at 8, is still on the board here at 11. I guess the only threat to really take him would have been Chicago at 9, but they trade out, so now you're in a great spot. You land the guy you wanted anyways. You pick up a 2nd-round pick and a 3rd-round pick next year in exchange, just to move down a couple spots. And Turner's great. I like Turner a lot. He's a super fun pass rusher, super athletic, really savvy with his hand usage, high motor type of guy. Really just something they need. They need that spark in their pass rush, right? Right now you have guys like Bud Dupree, Arnold Ebiketie, the guy they drafted out of Ohio State last year, whose name is escaping me. Like, they have guys, but they don't have like a true star at edge. They need that like game wrecker. And Turner has that potential. He'll come in day one as a good rotational edge, who, like I said, is going to provide a lot of juice, especially on 3rd downs and obvious passing situations. And then you probably want to fatten him up a little bit. You get him working with, some of your better run defenders. You've got guys like Grady Jarrett on the roster who are really good run defenders. You want to teach him how to defend the run a little bit better, get his anchor built up a little bit, like I said, by putting some of that weight on him. But I think, Turner might have the highest upside out of any edge in this class. I will say he is my edge 3, but looking at the other 2 edges, you have Laiatu Latu, who we'll talk about in a moment. His medicals could be an issue here. You're probably a little bit more worried about winning right now, and you probably don't want to worry about medicals. And then Jared Verse, I just don't think he's as great of a 3-4 type of edge rusher. So you bring in Turner. He's going to fit in well day one as, just like I said, a rotational pass rusher to give you juice, and long term he can be, I think, a true game wrecker if developed properly. All right, here at number 12, we've got the Denver Broncos taking Laiatu Latu out of UCLA, the edge rusher. And I know Broncos fans probably want a quarterback here. I get it. I just think Latu is a player you can't pass up on in this situation. For me, someone who's been evaluating draft prospects for about 4 years now, Latu is easily the best edge rusher I have ever personally watched. His hand usage is unbelievable. This guy has every move in the world in his bag. He has incredible counters. He's super smart. He very rarely gets displaced. I think he's a very underrated run defender. And going out and adding him to your defense that really, in terms of pass rushing, doesn't have a whole lot going on. Like, outside of quarterback, obviously, the trenches are the most important part of the team. And when you don't have a quarterback here that's like a must-have, right? Like, I like Bo Nix. I don't think he's a must-have quarterback. Maybe you think you can fix up Zach Wilson, or maybe you want to trade up for a quarterback later on. And I'll tell you, spoiler alert, one of the top 5 consensus quote-unquote quarterbacks does fall out of the first round of this mock for me. So maybe you go out and get him in the second or whatever. But Latu, he's just, in my opinion, a can't-miss prospect. You haven't had a true dominant alpha edge rusher since Von Miller left, which has been, what feels like a decade ago. I know it hasn't been that long, but it's been at least 5 years. So getting a guy like Latu who can wreck a game as a pass rusher, super productive guy, super savvy, super smart, like I said, very underrated run defender. I think this will be a huge get for the Broncos. You put him with Baron Browning, and all of a sudden your pass rush is a different animal, which is important when you're going up against Justin Herbert and Patrick Mahomes twice a year. And Broncos fans, if you're mad about me passing on a quarterback just to let the Raiders get one, don't worry, they're not taking a quarterback here either. Instead, they're going to go with Talise Fuanga out of Oregon State. I already talked about Fuanga. He is one of the top tackles on my board. He's actually my tackle 4. My tackle 3 we'll talk about here in a moment, actually, spoiler alert. But the reason I go Fuanga here for the Raiders is because they need a right tackle. They need somebody who's going to get down and dirty in the trenches. They need somebody who's going to, kind of do the heavy lifting as a run blocker. And they just need somebody that, we want to talk about the Raider way, right? Antonio Pierce wants to bring back the Raider way. Talise Fuanga is the definition of that hard-nosed black and blue, silver and black type of football. I think Fuanga is a prime example of what you're looking for in that situation. So you put Fuanga on one side, you have Colton Miller on the other. Those are your bookend tackles. And honestly, if Fuanga doesn't work out at tackle, you kick him into guard, he's going to be just as good. Or just as good as what my projection for him is at tackle, at least. As a Bears fan, Darnell Wright is the player we took in the first round last year, and Fuanga said he bases a lot of his game off of Wright. He said he looks up to Darnell Wright. He said Darnell Wright's one of his favorite players to watch. There is a lot of Darnell Wright in Talise Fuanga. Darnell Wright was the best tackle in football last year among rookies. I jumped the gun a little bit there. He was the best rookie tackle last year, arguably a top 5 right tackle in the league. I think Fuanga can have that same type of year. Again, he's going to be killer in the run game. There's a little bit of development to be done in the passing game, but he has the will, he has the drive, he has the intensity, and I think that's kind of what you need. You're going to be setting up whoever your quarterback is next year, whether that's Gardner Minshew, Aiden O'Connell, a rookie, whatever. You're setting them up with 2 really good bookend tackles. You're building the trenches, which is something the Raiders have just not done offensively in a while. And like I said, having him and Colton Miller as your 2 tackles, your tackle duo, is absolutely incredible. So I think Fuanga is a no-brainer pick here. I know you probably want a quarterback, but with Jaden Daniels off the board, I tried to work out a world where they could trade up for Daniels, but the Vikings just always had more to offer. So I wouldn't take Nix here. I definitely wouldn't take Penix here. So I think this is your best bet here at 13. Here at 14, we've got another, I think, no-brainer pick with the Saints taking Olu Fashanu out of Penn State. And I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this one because this is a pretty easy explanation. You've got Trevor Penning, who is bad at football, and you've got Ryan Ramczyk, who is incredible, but might not play next year, and U's future as a whole is in jeopardy. So you got to get something going at tackle. You get Olu Fashanu, who I'm not a huge fan of his run blocking ability. I don't think anyone is, but he's an incredible pass blocker. He is arguably the most savvy pass blocker in this class. He's a technician with his hands. He's super smart. He doesn't lean. He doesn't reach. He lets guys come to him and he holds his ground. He's got a good anchor as a pass blocker. Like, he is awesome. With the Saints doing this, you're you're getting a bookend tackle and you're betting on Ryan Ramczyk coming back and you're replacing Trevor Penning. Maybe you can try Penning at guard, see if he can't work there because he's sure as hell not working at tackle. I know this isn't like a big, exciting, sexy pick, but I don't think Saints fans would complain at all about getting some actual help in the trenches because Lord knows this football team needs it. And we get back to the Bears. I know all my Bears fans out there have been waiting for this one. We're going to take Byron Murphy II, the defensive tackle out of Texas. And this is somebody I think would be in play for the Bears at 9. So trading back 6 spots, getting a 2nd round pick and a 5th round pick in a year where, like I already said, you have 4 draft picks total, and getting somebody who is, I think, a top 10 player in the class. I have him ranked as my 2nd best defensive player behind Latu. I think he's incredible. And when you have Matt Eberflus, who a lot of his defense is predicated on having that true standout 3 technique, that's what Byron Murphy is. You didn't already watch my video where I ran through all of the defensive tackle my top 10 defensive tackle prospects, rather. Murphy was at number 1. I think he's the best DT in this class by far. Super savvy pass rusher, incredible athlete, really strong, way stronger than you would expect for his size, a way better anchor than you would expect from his size, super smart, really stout run defender, just absolutely incredible. And you're pairing him with Gervon Dexter, who flashed a lot last year on the defensive line, looked absolutely incredible towards the end of the year. You pair him with Andrew Billings, who was quietly one of the better nose tackles in the league last year, and you put him with Montez Sweat. That is a great rotation on the inside with Sweat on the outside. Sure, you still need an edge rusher, but you picked up that second-round pick. Maybe somebody like Austin Booker will fall to you, who I absolutely love. So I could understand maybe wanting to go with a Jared Verse here, maybe. I have very similar grades on the two of them. I just think Murphy's better, so I'm going to go with Murphy. I also think he would be more of an Eberflus pick, although Verse is also very Eberflus. I could also see maybe taking a receiver here. I think this will be a little bit too, well, I wouldn't say too early. I just think it would be too early for other people's tastes. Like, I would entertain Adonai Mitchell here. But no, I love getting a hold of Murphy. I think Murphy is an absolute stud. If he was in Chicago, I would buy his jersey very quickly, because I think Murphy's going to be incredible at the next level. You know, with him, I think the best way I can put it is sometimes it's not about the size of the dog in the fight, it's the size of the fight in the dog, right? And Murphy is a prime example of that. I've started to develop this love for really savvy, athletic, smaller interior defensive linemen. I loved Kalijah Kancey last year. He ended up as 11 on my big board. Murphy's at 10 right now. So very similar. It's just Murphy's a much better run defender and he's much stronger. So when you have a strong defensive tackle that's a great pass rusher, even if he's a little bit undersized, I think he fits super well within Chicago's rotation. I know there's going to be some Bears fans that are probably a little upset that this is the pick over the Illinois guy and Johnny Newton, but Murphy's a better run defender by a lot. So I think that matters a lot, especially for how the Bears like their defensive linemen. So I think this is a pick that, again, I love. I absolutely love this fit. I love this pick. And again, I think Murphy would be in play at 9 in real life. So getting him at 15 would be incredible value. Here at 16 for the Seahawks, we're going to go with Cooper DeJean out of Iowa, the defensive back. And I'll tell you right now, I had to phone a friend on this one because I did not know what to do with the Seahawks. Initially, I was going to go interior offensive line because obviously they need that. They lost Damian Lewis and their other 2 interior linemen aren't great. But after consulting with my resident Seahawks expert, ironically named Jackson Powers, he said that Cooper DeJean was the pick. So he walked me through it. And basically, when you get Mike McDonald, you need a very versatile secondary. You need versatile players, period. And Cooper DeJean is probably the most versatile player in this class. Now, is he Kyle Hamilton? No, but I think he can play a similar role to what Kyle Hamilton was playing. You know, you look at a guy that was playing a little bit of safety, a little bit of corner, a little bit of nickel, a little bit of edge, a little bit of linebacker. You know, Cooper DeJean can do all of that. And considering the Seahawks don't have any great safeties, like, yeah, they signed Rayshon Jenkins. He got, I think, a 1-year deal. And then who was the other one? Kayvon Wallace was their other safety. I'm not moved. You got to have something going on at safety. You got to have someone back there. I think DeJean can start day one and be better than both of them. You can also sub in at nickel if you want to, you know, try some different packages, try different guys in different places. I know Spoon was absolutely incredible for them. Maybe some Seahawks fans out there think Spoon can be what Kyle Hamilton was with the Ravens. I suppose it's possible, but you can never have too many versatile players when it comes to Mike McDonald and his defense. He's a defensive mastermind. He knows how to utilize guys at their best. He knows how to keep offenses on their toes by moving guys around, hitting with things that they're not used to, and having a chess piece like DeJean who can play, again, corner, safety, linebacker, nickel corner, maybe some edge if you really wanted him to. That's a super, super powerful tool to have, and I think this will be an awesome pick for the Seahawks. So shout out to Jackson, who will be joining us on Run the North for at least our post-first round reactions, because he completely sold me on this pick for the Seahawks, and I think it's a great fit. At 17, the Jaguars were another team I was really struggling with. I don't know, they're in a weird spot. Because part of me wanted to take a receiver, but then I was thinking about all the money they have tied up in receiver, and even if I don't like their receiver room of Christian Kirk, Zay Jones, and Gabe Davis, who they gave way too much money to, they're putting a lot of money there. And they also have Parker Washington, who I like, and I don't want to take snaps away from him. So I shifted my focus to the defensive side of the ball, and I just decided to go with the best DB on the board, in my opinion, and that's Quinion Mitchell. Is he the perfect scheme fit? Maybe not, but I have faith that they can be a more versatile, or not more versatile, excuse me. I have faith that the Jaguars can adapt to a talent like Mitchell. Obviously, he absolutely lit up the Senior Bowl. He's been a late riser or not a late riser, but a consistent riser for everybody. He's my CB2 behind Cooper DeJean. I have him as a top 15-ish prospect in the class. So I think getting him here at 17 would be great for the Jaguars. You get some corner help because God knows you need it. Again, maybe not the perfect scheme fit, but I like him quite a bit more than guys like Nate Wiggins or Terry and Arnold that would be better fits here. So I don't think you can go wrong with Mitchell. You can definitely figure out a way to adapt him. He's a bit of a better zone corner than a man corner, obviously, but he's damn good in both phases of the game. So I don't think it matters that much. Moving on to number 18, we have the Bengals taking Johnny Newton out of Illinois. And look, I know the Bengals are always investing in their defensive line early. They just took Myles Murphy in the first round. I'm not moved by Myles Murphy. I don't think he's that good. And also, these are guys that play two totally different positions, right? Murphy's more of like a tweener 3-4 end. Newton is a 3-tech. Could play 3-4 end if he needed him to, but I think he'll fit better as a defensive tackle. And the reason I like the Newton fit for Cincinnati specifically is because you don't have a true pass rusher at defensive tackle right now. You have Sheldon Rankins, who was a solid pass rusher last year, but that was more of a scheme thing. You know, that wasn't him just having raw, incredible pass rushing chops. That was, okay, we got to double Will Anderson. We got to take care of the defensive end that left and went to the Vikings. I have had so many names on my mind over the past couple days that names are difficult right now. But you had these two great defensive ends and you had these linebackers you had to worry about. You had so much going on that Sheldon Rankins just kind of got lost in the mess and would slip into the backfield from time to time. And then BJ Hill is primarily run stuffer too. So you need that like true penetrator on the interior of your defensive line. And that is exactly what Johnny Newton is. He'll start out probably as a rotational defensive tackle that comes in on obvious passing downs. You know, the Bengals aren't afraid to kind of stash their first round picks. We didn't see a whole lot of Myles Murphy last year. So going out, getting a guy who is a legit pass rushing specialist, incredible hand usage, has a really deep bag of moves, especially for the position, super athletic, great first step. Like you are getting a great pass rusher from the interior. That's going to help out a lot, especially when you have to go up against the super weapons you have to go against at quarterback in the AFC. Can't have enough guys to get after the quarterback. Now I could see them going receiver if, you know, they think maybe a T. Higgins trade is imminent, or even if they just want to add another receiver, but it's a really deep receiver class. There's way better receivers down the board than there are DTs, so I think I'd rather take the DT here if I'm Cincy, and then take a receiver a little bit later on. With the Rams at 19, I knew I wanted to go offense because this is the first round pick that Sean McVay has had since Jared Goff. So I would imagine he wants to use that on offense. So we're going to go with Troy Fautanu out of Washington. And he's just the best tackle on the board at this point, in my opinion. I think he's an absolutely incredible pass blocker, one of the savvier pass blockers in the class. Damn solid run blocker as well. You get a guy who is going to be able to protect Matt Stafford's blind spot. So now you've got tackles of him and Rob Havenstein. You've got really solid interior with Steve Avila and Kevin Dotson, and I think it was Graham Glasgow they brought over from the Lions. They brought over a guard from the Lions. I'm almost positive it was him. So your offensive line is built up. You've got Matt Stafford. You've got great weapons. Yeah, you've got great weapons around him. Excuse me. You've got a good running game with Kyron Williams. The defense is only getting better. I know they just lost Aaron Donald, but this is one of the teams where I think you would be better off waiting for a defensive tackle, especially with Newton and Turner off the board. Now, if they were here at 19, I would absolutely entertain that because I think those two would pair beautifully with Kobe Turner and play your Aaron Donald role. Obviously not as good as Aaron Donald, but would fill some of the void that he left behind. But I think taking Fautanu here is an awesome pick. And like I said, just making sure Stafford, who's getting up there in age, is protected is huge. So I feel like this one doesn't require a whole lot more explanation beyond that. All right, this is where we're getting a little funky. I'm going to call my shot. I do think Brandon Ayuk's going to be traded on draft night. And I've got him going to the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are going to give up the 20th pick and a 4th for Brandon Ayuk, which is a really hard pill to swallow for the 49ers because you're losing an absolutely incredible route runner who is a more than capable deep threat and is, you know, just one of the better receivers in the league. You kind of brought him from the ground up yourself. You got him in the doghouse at the start of his career, turned him into this awesome high effort blocker. So why not go out and get another receiver who, I don't want to say has effort issues, but people are trying to act like he does, and Adonai Mitchell and mold him into your Brandon Ayuk replacement. Or more specifically, a receiver that I personally think has higher upside than Brandon Ayuk. Now, I know the college production wasn't there. I don't care. Who was he catching a football from? Who was throwing him the football? Like, I'm not a big college production equals NFL success guy. College production, I don't care about when I'm scouting. I'm watching for talent. And Adonai Mitchell is one of the best route runners I have seen at the wide receiver position in college, period, let alone this year. In a stacked wide receiver class, he is my wide receiver 4, behind the big 3 that were taken in the top 10. Honestly, it's a shock for me that I took this long to take him, because I think he's a top 12 player in the class. I absolutely love Adonai Mitchell. I know people are trying to act like there's character concerns with him right now, because sometimes when his blood sugar runs low, he gets cranky. That's what happens when you're diabetic. Okay, I hate that that's a thing that started. So you're going to send him to Kyle Shanahan. You're giving Shanahan the super nuanced route runner that is very CeeDee Lamb-esque in the way that he doesn't have to go full speed on his routes to really beat you, because he's so good with selling his head fakes and his jab steps and stutter steps and all these different like fakes that he does to get himself open. Adonai Mitchell is an absolutely incredible receiver. Is he as good as Brandon Ayuk right now? Obviously not, no. But I think he's one hell of a consolation prize if you really can't get anything done with Ayuk. And I know there's that one Titans fan in the back screaming, this is just Treylon Burks again. No, it's not. Because Adonai Mitchell is 10 times the prospect Treylon Burks ever was. So I love this pick for the Niners. Again, if they have to get rid of Ayuk, I think this is an incredible consolation prize for them. Ideally, you want to hold on to Ayuk. And then for Pittsburgh, it's self-explanatory. You don't know what's happening at quarterback next year. I guess they're going in with Russ. Right now, your wide receiver 2 is Van Jefferson. He's fine, but ideally, he's a wide receiver 3. So you go out, you get Ayuk, who steps in as your wide receiver 1 immediately. Fuck George Pickens. I don't care. Ayuk is better. So you have Ayuk and Pickens on the outside with Van Jefferson, not necessarily on the outside, but as your 1 and 2, and you can move them around. You got Van Jefferson as your 3. You have Muth as a really solid receiving tight end. You have a good backfield with Jalen Warren and Najee Harris and Connor Hayward, the son of the late great Ironhead Hayward, playing a little bit of an H-back, fullback role for whoever your quarterback is, whether it's Fields, Russ, fucking Timmy from down the street. I don't care. That's an incredible supporting cast. It's easily the best supporting cast easily the best supporting cast that Fields has ever had, and the best that Russ has had in a long time. So I see this as a major win both ways. If Ayuk is like hell-bent on not re-signing with the Niners, then like I said, I think this is a great consolation prize for the Niners and a great pickup for the Steelers. Here at 21, we've got Jackson Powers-Johnson going to the Dolphins. And this has been a pick for me for a long time now, primarily because of Connor Williams not coming back. If you watch Mike McDaniel's offense with the Dolphins, the center plays a big role. He really likes to get his center out in space, you know, whether it's on screens, on zone runs, getting to the second level, whatever. He likes his center to be able to move. He likes a quick center. He likes a smart center who isn't afraid to go up and punch somebody in the mouth. And that's exactly what Jackson Powers-Johnson is. I feel like this one doesn't require a whole lot of explanation. I'm going to try not to spend too much time on it, but I love this fit for them. I think JPJ is an absolutely incredible player. Top 20 player on my big board easily. I think he's definitely worth a first round pick. And for Miami to get him as a consolation prize for losing Connor Williams, who tore his ACL, still isn't signed anywhere. So we don't know what his football future is. I think this is a hell of a move. Obviously, you're going to get him on a rookie contract, so you don't have to pay him like you would have had to pay Connor Williams. I think he's got a little bit more quickness to his game. I think he's got a little bit more of that mean streak to his game. So Tua's going to have a hell of a time with him in front of him, blocking for him, snapping the ball, all that good stuff. And they're going to absolutely adore him in the run game, giving Miami an even more lethal run game when they actually decide to run the ball. Because we know Mike McDaniel's pretty weird about actually running the ball, even though he's a run game guru. So I love this pick for the Dolphins. This has been a pick I've been mocking for them for months now. And I think it is definitely something that's in play, because I think the Steelers could go with him at 20, and if they don't, I think he's definitely in play for Miami at 21. Next up with the Eagles, I've got Kool-Aid McKinstry, the corner out of Alabama. And the truth of the matter is here, he's the best corner on my board. Philly needs help in their secondary. We saw their secondary really fall apart last year with James Bradbury taking a step back, with Darius Slay taking a step back. They've already taken some precautionary moves to get there. They brought back CJ Gardner-Johnson. So now you want to add another boundary corner. You want to add somebody who at the very least is going to get to learn from some of your vets, and then here in a year or two take over. We know they're not afraid to stash talent. And one of the big reasons why I like this fit specifically for Philly is because Philly was a team that was apparently heavily in on Jalen Johnson when he was made available at the trade deadline last year. And I see a lot of Jalen Johnson in Kool-Aid's game. He's just a very smart, scrappy, physical man corner, not a great athlete by any means, but what he lacks in athleticism, he makes up for in timing, in the placement of his punches towards the line of scrimmage, just his scrappy nature. I think this is somebody that Philly would absolutely like. I could also see Graham Barton being in play here for them if they're worried about replacing Kelsey right away. I think that's something they might want to wait on. I know they have, Cam Jorgens that they could slide over there. That's definitely possible. You could look at some tackle help. I know I've seen a lot of mocks do that, but I like the fit for Kool-Aid a lot. Again, I think he's a hell of a corner. He's my CB3 behind Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, top 25 player on my board. And I think Philly landing him here at 22 would be a dream spot because, again, you can either play him right now or you can let him sit behind Bradbury and Slay and develop and get yourself a kick-ass aggressive man corner that will be a cornerstone of your defense for as long as you're willing to pay him, I suppose. I want to say for the next decade, but we know how contracts go nowadays, so it's kind of hard to say something like that. But, maybe for the next decade if they decide they're able to pay him. Here with the Chargers' second pick, they already added one piece on offense. Let's add another one and give them Graham Barton out of Duke, who I have listed as an interior offensive lineman on my board. I think he projects best as a center or a guard. He could hypothetically play tackle. Either way, Harbaugh loves to work the trenches. You want to build up the trenches. So you go out and you get somebody who can play a bunch of different spots on the offensive line. I still like Zion Johnson. I think there's something to be had there. You have Corey Linsley, whose future is kind of up in the air. You have Rashawn Slater, who's a great left tackle. So you got to get Justin Herbert some protection. You got to get some guys for Greg Roman that are going to be able to block in the run game. And Barton's, able to do all of that. I'm a North Carolina fan, and I fucking love this dude's game. I think he's an absolute stud. Again, he can fill in when needed. I think you probably try to start him right away at center. Depending on what's going on with Corey Linsley. If not, you can start him right away at guard, or if you don't like Trey Pipkins, you can start him right at tackle, whatever. The point is, he's a super versatile offensive lineman. You build up the trenches, and I think this is a pretty obvious pick for the Chargers. I would have liked to see a receiver here too if I didn't trade up for Rome earlier. So I think the Chargers are now in a spot where, you've solidified some offensive talent. I think their next couple picks will probably go to the defensive side of the ball, get Harbaugh some defensive guys to kind of make his tough-nosed defense that he's going to want. But Barton's a very Harbaugh guy, and I think that's one of the other big things here. The versatility, the need, and the fact that he just feels like a Harbaugh guy are, three check marks that I think are pretty necessary for the Chargers if they're going to make a move like they did to trade down from 5 and get 2 first-round picks. I think Barton would be somebody they'd love to get in the late first round. Next up, with the Dallas Cowboys, I've got something I think is a little fun, and that's them taking Brian Thomas Jr., the wide receiver, out of LSU. And the idea here is you have CD, but how long do you have CD, right? Hopefully he gets paid here soon. I'd hate to see him leave the Cowboys. But even if you pay him, you've got CD, you've got I think they cut Michael Gallup. I was going to say the husk of Michael Gallup. You've got Jalen Tolbert. You've got Brandon Cooks, who's not getting any younger. Like, you need another weapon. That offense needs some more firepower. And yeah, you'll probably want a running back later. Obviously, you're not taking a running back at 24. So the best way to get offensive firepower is to add to your receiver room. Brian Thomas Jr. being here at 24, I think is crazy. Which, I have no one to blame but myself, obviously. But the way the board's fallen, it's just how it is. I think he's absolutely incredible. He's one of the top 25 players on my board, somewhere in there. So getting him here at 24 is pretty good value, in my opinion. You're just getting an incredible deep threat. Reminds me a lot of Christian Watson, who went to the Packers. And we know when Watson's healthy, he's awesome. He's an awesome, awesome deep threat. So you're going to have Brian Thomas as your field stretcher. You can kind of play Brandon Cooks and CD interchangeably out of the slot. They can be more of your short to intermediate threats. Thomas will stretch the field for you. You've got Jake Ferguson as an awesome weapon. Hopefully you get a running back. Hopefully you start to fucking use Hunter Lipke, which pisses me off if they don't use him. They need to use him more. And you give Dak a really, really good arsenal of weapons. This will be the first time in a while he's had 3 good receivers. So I like this fit for the Cowboys a lot. Sure, you can go offensive line. I'm not in love with any of the tackles that are still on the board. So I think BTJ is the best they could do here at 24 with the way the board's fallen, obviously. Now, we're actually going to have the Packers take an offensive lineman here at 25 by taking Jordan Morgan, the tackle out of Arizona. And I don't love Jordan Morgan. I've got more of like a late 1, early 2 grade on him. But given that the Packers' current left tackle is Rasheed Walker, they just lost D-back, you need to start thinking long-term at left tackle, right? You got to keep Jordan Love protected. And who better to protect Jordan than another Jordan, right? So you bring in Jordan Morgan, who's a very, how do I want to put this? I think he's a safe tackle. I don't think he has the upside that a lot of the other guys do, but I like his pass blocking ability, obviously. His hand usage is really good. I was impressed with the tape out of Arizona for sure, but I think there's just better tackles in this class, which is, I don't like him as much as some of the other guys, but I think he's the safest pick here. Another guy they could have considered that's on the board is like Amarius Mims, and I love Mims, but his lack of experience kind of worries me. So you want somebody that can step in day one and block for your franchise quarterback. The Packers are in win now. This isn't about necessarily, oh, we're going to be ready to go in 3 years, right? You want to win now, and I think Morgan's a win now move. I think he's a win now tackle. And, I would be pretty pissed if it ended up this way for the Packers as a Bears fan. Like, they're going to end up with something good no matter what, because this is an awesome draft class. But Morgan, getting someone like this who's just a consistent, solid tackle would really piss me off, because that's exactly what their offense needs. Next up with the Bucks, I ended up going with Terrion Arnold, the corner out of Alabama. And this is kind of a move just to make sure he doesn't fall out of the first round in a way. But also I think this will be a big pickup for the Bucks, because their corner room's not great. They just traded away, was it Carlton Davis they traded to the Lions? And outside of that, they've got Sean Murphy Bunting and Zion McCollum. So you need that help at corner. I think Arnold's the best corner on the board at this point. I think he can come in right away. He can play inside. He can play outside. I would rather him play nickel personally, but I think you can get away with it either way. The other thing I was considering here for the Bucks would have been like edge or interior offensive line. You've got JPJ and Barton off the board, so interior offensive line's off the board for me at this point. And then as for edge rushers, Jared Verse would be good here, but I don't like the fit. Like I don't think Verse fits the Bucks as well as like a Latu would have, or even like a Chop Robinson, but I think I'd rather have Arnold than Robinson. I love Chop Robinson, but bringing in a designated pass rusher when your corners are pretty weak, not something I'm in love with. I also would have considered Austin Booker here, but I figured I'd keep that one to myself out of a little bit of fear. Plus, like I said, I had to make sure I found Arnold a way into the first round somehow. So I think Arnold's great. I think this is a really good landing spot for him. I think this gives the Bucs a more formidable secondary. And, you got to remember, this is a team that's trying to get back to the playoffs. After everybody slept on them last year, Baker came out, made them look great. Defense needs some help. Worry about the pass rush a little bit later in the class, because I like the edge depth more than I like the corner depth in this class too. So I think Arnold's a really good fit for the Bucs here at 26. However, since the Bucks passed on Jared Verse, I forgot their team name for a second, the Cardinals are going to seize the opportunity and take him here at 27. They already took Marvin Harrison at 4. You got this pick last year from trading down with the Texans, who ironically took an edge rusher when you traded down with them. So now you're getting your edge rushers. Jared Verse quite as good as Will Anderson? Probably not, but I still think he's incredible. I love Jared Verse. He's my edge 2 behind Latu. So him being the third edge off the board is great value, especially because I think Verse is just outside of the top 10 on my big board. I think he's 11th, so getting him at 27 is great value. You're getting an incredible run defender at edge, who also is a really, really good pass rusher. Great first step, plays with a lot of intensity, a lot of energy, just a lot of juice. Big physical guy. Fits perfectly as a 4-3 defensive end, which was one of the reasons why I didn't want to send him to Tampa. And when your current edge room is BJ Ojulari and Zaven Collins are your starters, you need some help. And credit to the Cardinals, they already tried to boost their defensive line a little bit with Bilal Nichols and Justin Jones, who, as a Bears fan, I'm familiar with both of them. Neither of them move me. I think Verse will be pretty comfortably the best player on your defensive line day one. I love Verse. I think he's incredible. Him falling to the Cardinals here is an absolute steal. I could see a world where he slips a little bit in real life just because of all the offensive talent. And if that's the case, whoever ends up with him is getting a steal. Because like I said, Verse is awesome. Getting a guy who can do both at a high level and isn't just like some unathletic, immovable object. He has the athleticism and the juice. Who was it? Brett Coleman compared him to Whitney Merciless. I've got him compared to Ryan Kerrigan, who was an awesome defensive end for over a decade or right around a decade. Time's weird. I don't understand time sometimes. But the point is, Jared Verse is the type of guy you bring in to be a cornerstone stud for a decade on your defensive line. And getting him, again, I've said it 5 times now just because I'm trying to fill time. Getting him here at 27 is an absolute steal, and I love this move for the Cardinals. Now, here's the point where we ask ourselves, is Xavier worthy of a first-round pick? And personally, I think he is. Now, I will say I'm taking him over a guy I have ahead of him on my receiver rankings, which you'll find out about tomorrow. But I think Xavier Worthy will be a great fit for Buffalo. You have Josh Allen, who has this massive cannon of an arm, and you need like a true deep threat. And Worthy is more than your traditional deep threat burner type, right? This isn't John Ross. There's so much more nuance to Worthy's game. He's an incredible route runner. He's a great understanding of like how to attack coverages. Like, he's good at coming back and sitting down in the soft spot of a zone and being able to create there. He's able to take the top off the defense. He's able to pull off like head fakes. He's really good with like a jab step, stutter step type of move. Like, he's got a lot more in his bag than your traditional deep threat. So you're not taking Worthy and just saying run straight, right? Again, this isn't John Ross. You're going to be able to work him on posts, on corners, on crossers, on fades, on in-breakers, out-breakers, curls, slants, everything. He's got a really diverse route tree for someone of his skill set. Now, you're probably going to ask him to put on about 5 or 10 pounds just so he's not weighing under 170. But, when you're as fast as he is, he broke the combine 40 record for Christ's sakes. I think you can stomach that. I think you can be okay with that. I think this is an awesome fit for the Bills. Like I said, he's the second best receiver on my board at this point, but I think he would be the most likely out of the 2 to go in the first round, and I think he's a better fit for the Bills in the first round. So I love this pick for the Bills. This is a pick I hate just because it would piss me off as a Bears fan, because I love Ennis Rakestraw. He is one of my favorite corners in this class. He's got the grit, the toughness, the intensity, the physicality, the pure just ability to play press man coverage that the Lions like die for in a corner, right? You've got these guys like Amik Robertson who are fine. They're nothing special. Rakestraw is the best version of them. He's a little bit more athletic, probably would play more in the slot for them. I think that's where Rakestraw projects best, but he's a kneecap biter at corner, and I don't think I need to say much more than that for the Lions. This would be a dream fit for them. I've seen some people try to mock like Marshawn Kneeland here because he's more of a local guy and they need defensive line help. Not something I'd do. I've fallen in love with this fit. Again, as much as I hate to admit it as a Bears fan, I absolutely adore this fit. So I don't think the Lions can go wrong with Rakestraw. Maybe this is a little bit of a reach to some people out there. I think he's well worth the first round pick. So this is a fantastic fit, fantastic pick for the Lions, and I hate it. I really do hate it. Next up with the Ravens, we're going to take offensive tackle Amarius Mims out of Georgia. And this is just because Morgan Moses is gone. I know you've got guys like Daniel Falalele who maybe can work out, but Mims, the upside is immense. He looked incredibly polished in the limited snaps he had, on top of being a big athlete and, just a super strong, immovable object type of tackle. And I love the Ravens offensive staff. I love the group that develops their offensive linemen because the Ravens always have a good offensive line. So landing a guy like Mims to boost that offensive line, I think is a great fit for both the team and the player. Mims is going to get the development he needs. Probably doesn't start right away. Actually, maybe he does. I don't know. Maybe he wins the battle in camp, wins the job in camp over Falele or whatever. But, not a whole lot to say with Mims, just a super big, athletic, traitsy type of tackle, a little more refined than you'd expect for the limited snaps he played in college. And that's kind of the hang up for a lot of people, is he really didn't play a lot in college. But I think he's easily worthy of a late first round pick. I wouldn't take him much higher than that. I wouldn't take him like in the 20s or the early 20s at least, or the teens or whatever. But here at 30, I think this is a really good spot for him, a really good projection for him. And again, I adore this fit. So I think this is a home run pick for the Ravens at 30. Next up with the 49ers, we've got Tyler Guyton out of Oklahoma, the offensive tackle. And to keep this one brief, we just took the best tackle on the board here. The Niners offensive line was terrible last year. You have Trent Williams, Kyle Juszczyk, and George Kittle are better blockers than 4 of their 5 offensive linemen, which, is a testament to both how good those two are and how bad the Niners offensive line was last year. So getting a guy like Guyton, who's just a plug-and-play tackle, I think is very solid. Maybe a little bit earlier than I would have him in terms of value, but I think he's definitely worth the pick here. A lot of offensive tackles going off the board. You want to make sure you land one. You already got your replacement for Brandon Ayuk earlier in the day. Maybe you could wait and take your tackle early and take a receiver later, but I loved the fit with Adonai Mitchell. So walking out of the first round with Guyton and Mitchell, I think is awesome for the Niners. Boosts their offense a lot. And I don't know, I'm trying to make sure this goes over a minute because I don't want to snub the Niners here since I made them trade away Brandon Ayuk, but Guyton's a great fit. I know I've said that for a lot of these last couple picks, but I really do like the fits I found here at the end of the first round. So getting Brock Purdy some protection, getting Christian McCaffrey some extra protection, definitely can't go wrong there. And the Niners damn well need offensive line help. So I think Guyton would be a very, very solid pick for them. Our penultimate pick here, we've got Ladd McConkey out of Georgia going to the Chiefs. And spoiler alert for tomorrow's wide receiver video, this is my wide receiver 5. I love Ladd McConkey. He is probably the best route runner I've seen out of a prospect. I know I said that about Adonai Mitchell a little bit earlier or something similar. They're both incredible, but McConkey's a little bit better. He's a great route runner at all 3 levels. He understands the position super well. There's a lot of nuance to his game, and giving Mahomes a guy who just knows how to get open alongside Travis Kelce, who's made a career out of just knowing how to get open, is terrifying. I think the league would be kicking themselves if they let Ladd fall to the Chiefs here. Now, there could be an argument made that the Chiefs need to take an offensive tackle, and I get that completely. I'm not giving them like Kingsley Suamataia at the end of the first round. I don't think he's worth that. So going out and getting, again, a top 5 receiver in the class, in my opinion, at 32, pairing him with hopefully Rashee Rice. We'll have to see what happens there. But definitely with Travis Kelce and with Hollywood Brown, that's a lethal receiver room. That is an absolutely lethal group of weapons. And all of a sudden, Mahomes goes from not having any weapons and winning a ring to having a really good group of weapons that's really complementary, because you have Ladd McConkey, who's like an inside-outside, just gets open in the intermediate area. You have Travis Kelce, who's the same thing, but he's really just a do-it-all player. You have Hollywood Brown, who stretches the field. If Rashee Rice plays the whole season, you've got him as like your, I don't want to say gadget guy, but your manufactured touch guy who thrives off getting the ball behind the line of scrimmage and short and then just running after the catch. That's a lethal group of weapons for Mahomes on top of a defense that is mostly still together. You lose L'Jarius Sneed, but otherwise, fucking awesome pick for the Chiefs. And as a fan of a team who in this world, if the mock draft were to go this way, or the real draft were to go this way rather, who would actually have a team that would start to be able to compete, I would start to fear the Chiefs again, because this would be terrifying. And finally, here at 33, given the Panthers their little bit of time to shine, we're going to go with Keon Coleman, the wide receiver out of Florida State. And this is just to give them a big body in the receiver room. I still believe in Jonathan Mingo a little bit, but I think if you have a room right away with Keon Coleman, Adam Thielen, Deontay Johnson, and Jonathan Mingo, you have a really good receiver room. Because Keon Coleman, I love what he brings to the table as a route runner. I think he's an underrated route runner. He's a great 50-50 ball winner. Super physical guy. I know he's not the fastest in the world, but, I think he's a little bit quicker on tape than he showed up at, the combine, his 40 time. I think he's a little bit quicker on tape than that kind of suggests. So getting yourself a legit weapon at 33 here with your first pick, getting another receiver to help out Bryce Young. You've already done so much investing at on the offensive line, and getting a good staff around him, that adding more weapons around him is important. The other guy I would have considered here is Ricky Pearsall, primarily because he reminds me a lot of Adam Thielen as is. So for him to learn under Thielen and then, kind of take over for Thielen once Thielen's out of town, retires, whatever happens first, I think that would be a great fit. But I'm trying to think of what's going to help Bryce right now, and I think Coleman does that a little bit better. I think Coleman's going to be a stud at the next level. I'm a huge fan of his, and I just had to find a way to sneak him in here, so I figured throwing him in at 33 to the Panthers was the best way to do that. But anyways, folks, that is going to do it for my first and only mock draft of the 2024 offseason. I hope you all enjoyed, and if you did, please make sure to leave a like down below, as it does help out the channel a ton. Shows your support, shows you care, all that good stuff, and I really do appreciate it. And also make sure to subscribe, as like I said, we've got more draft content coming your way before and after the draft, and then also videos throughout the summer you definitely won't want to miss. This is going to be a great place to be for NFL content throughout the summer. We're talking film reviews, we're talking breakdowns, we're talking all that good stuff, and then also through the season into the future and all that good stuff. You know how it goes. But if you don't agree with some of my picks, let me know down in the comments below what you would have done if you agree with some of my picks. Let me know your different thoughts on the players and things like that. I would love to have a conversation with you all with the draft just a few short days away. It's always great to get in that last minute draft discussion. And also, if you want to hear more from me about the draft, I'm going to be live during the draft over on my podcast channel. That's Run the North, a sports podcast. We've got a link down in the description below. You can check it out. We're going to be live for the first round and then also day 2. Going to try to go live for day 3. We'll see how that goes, but we'll definitely be live for the first 2 nights at least. So if you want to see me, my podcast co-hosts, and some special guests react to the draft, get our immediate analysis, interact with us, ask us questions, laugh at us for being idiots, whatever it may be, you definitely won't want to miss that. But to everyone out there watching, I hope you all have a wonderful day, evening, night, afternoon, whatever time of day it is for you. I hope you enjoy it, because you're all wonderful people and you truly deserve it. And thank you for watching this video.
Had a chance on the throwback. This was an ill-advised throw. What an unbelievable catch by Cole Kmet. And he cups it too. No movement when he hits the ground, tucked up against his shoulder. Wow.
Using that